Yeah, he wasn't too missed in Corvallis. We were able to open up the holes. It was funny to watch. Like Dallas has like no fear. Their players are generally like Corvallis was bigger than we were.
You guys both work out of the local office here? Lively that Michael is going to be a couple of minutes late. I'm informed Michael's going to be a couple of minutes late, but we have let's go ahead and get started at 4:02. Call the Public Administration Committee to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Shane,
Here.
Council President Briggs,
Here.
Councilor Fitzgerald,
Here.
Councilor Schilling,
Here.
and Councilor Spivey is absent.
Starts with an S. We have a quorum plus. You have the minutes of our last meeting in front of you. Is there anything that needs to be changed, altered, or modified in some way?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is the sidewalk repair program policy. Mr. City Manager, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Chair Shane. So this is a policy that's implementing a program that we've never really formalized. The City of Dallas has a sidewalk reimbursement program for sidewalk repairs. And right now that program offers up to $500. It's a 50-50 reimbursement program. But looking at kind of the history of that program, it was never formalized in a policy or by the council through a resolution or ordinance. So we surmised that it was likely created just through an administrative action by the former city manager.
A lot of things were done that way.
And that's true. So looking ahead, though, and talking with the city council and council president Briggs in particular, we were looking at is that $500 reimbursement, practical in today's dollars? And it's just not. And so what we wanted to do is look at increasing that amount from $500 to $2,500, and then allowing property owners to leverage that up to that amount, noting that those projects may be, even more expensive depending on the scope of work they're doing. So in wanting to make that change, we felt it was appropriate to create an actual program and a policy. And so that's what you have before you here. So I will go to the actual policy. It's on page 5 of your packet. So it's formatted in the way that other council policies are, the title being Sidewalk Repair Program. The purpose of the policy is to create the sidewalk repair program. The policy would apply to all properties inside the city limits of Dallas whose sidewalks qualify under the terms of the program. And the policy is that the city provides reimbursement for public sidewalk repairs as described in the program. So then you get down to the procedure, which is the program itself. Again, there's the reference to the code that says that the owner of real property adjacent to or abutting on a public sidewalk, driveway, or retaining wall shall maintain the sidewalk, driveway, and retaining wall in good repair and free of hazards. So noting that the property owners are responsible for those amenities abutting their property, we're proposing a program that is designed to assist property owners with up to 50% of the cost of the sidewalk repairs with a maximum grant amount of $2,500. The total amount in the city budget for this program would be $25,000, which is 25% of the annual allocation that we give to sidewalk repairs in the city. So the city may take on some additional sidewalk projects on our own. Of the $100,000, $75,000 would be dedicated for that purpose. $25,000 of those funds would go to this program specifically. That would fund up to 10 maximum grant awards, but it would also enable more awards if maybe the sidewalk repair only cost $1,000, right? So that frees up $1,500 of a maximum award that could be used for, again, a smaller project. So
So it's 50% or 2,500, whichever comes first.
50%, yeah, 50% of $5,000 maximum. So $2,500 award could be given. The eligibility criteria are here. So applications will only be considered for repair of sidewalks along public streets as approved by the Public Works Department. The property owners may only apply for one reimbursement for one property in a calendar year. So if I'm a property owner and I own 5 properties in Dallas and 3 of those sidewalks need repair, I can only apply for one grant for one property. I can't apply for 3 grants, one for each of the properties that I own in a calendar year.
Chanel for that, given that they all do need to be repaired.
I think it's kind of making sure that we're distributing the funds amongst more citizens, right? So one person who maybe knows that this program exists, applies for, more than $2,500 in a year, where you might have other property owners who maybe didn't know about the program or didn't apply fast enough, and then don't have access to that funding because one person took $7,500 instead of the $2,500. So some parity and equity built.
Are there
built in there.
fines for having a,
So there is a process outside of the grant. So we have we have municipal code rules that talk about sidewalk repairs, right? The property owner is ultimately responsible for this. So a property owner may say, I don't need this $2,500, so I'm not going to request reimbursement. I'm not going to go through the paperwork of doing the grant. I'll just repair the sidewalk on my own. They can do that.
but I guess what I was asking, is there a fine for not repairing? I mean, like to have a,
So I'm going to continue the
I'm sorry.
conversation. So that's one avenue that can happen. Another avenue is this program, or if someone has a sidewalk that's in disrepair, we've identified it either through like a code enforcement complaint is how that would typically come in, and they're not willing to repair that. The city can do 2 things. One, they can cite them into court and the judge can order that to be done. And there could be penalties that are associated with that through the municipal court action. Alternatively, in your municipal code, it talks about a process by which the city can undertake the repair, and then assess the property owner the cost of that repair that the city did, similar that you would do with like a public improvement district. So we would bring them in, apply that as a lien on their property if they chose not to pay it within 30 days of being invoiced for the work. And then that lien would ultimately get paid off at the time that they like refinance, their house, or they sell their property, something like that. So that's kind of the ways that the sidewalk could get repaired if they chose not to do it proactively on their own.
average for someone to,
Just really
Just
depends. Depends on how bad. Are they replacing their entire length of their sidewalk? Or are they just doing like one broken panel?
so they can do one broken or
Yes.
push step or something?
Yes, if just like one, let's say, maybe a panel over where their driveway is, right, gets cracked because they maybe drove a heavy vehicle over that repeatedly. They can just repair the broken panels. They don't have to repair the entire sidewalk.
You got to put in, and it's already over 10 grand.
Right, that's what
That's why we bumped it up to the 25.
So that could be another area where if they're on a corner and they need to do an ADA accessible ramp, that's going to bump it up pretty expensive pretty fast. So again, having the program be more than $500.
So when you live on
makes
a
sense.
corner, not only do you pay a higher rate of property tax, but then you got to pay for that ADA ramp as well?
Well, yeah, if you need to put one in, yeah.
Yeah, if you need to put one in. Yeah.
For corner lot.
And that's also why the city actively is going through and replacing and putting ADA ramps in where they don't exist today. So we don't put that burden on the property owners.
Okay.
So we proactively go in and try to repair those and fix them without putting that on the owners.
That's some of where the other 75% goes to sometimes.
Sure. All right, so continuing down the eligibility criteria, applications must be received and approved by the city before the work begins. So in the current program, people can just come in after they do the work and give us the documentation that they did the work, and we'll give them the $500 reimbursement. With this, we're treating it more like a traditional grant program. You apply before you even do the work, we approve it, and then you do the work and then get reimbursed, right? So we want to make sure that we're approving the project before they do any of the work.
We have an anticipation on how long that process would take for an approval? Is it a weekly thing or a?
So we're going to take applications on a first come, first served basis. We talk about that a little bit down lower. But I would say that once someone submits the application, it's going to go to our Public Works Department. They're going to make sure that the project is eligible for reimbursement, right? It's on a public street. It meets all the eligibility criteria. The work hasn't started. And then they have the bids that are needed for the project. I would anticipate that would take, no more than 2 weeks to be able to say, yep, you're approved. Go ahead and start the work. So it'll be a fairly quick turnaround. Applications for public sidewalks along properties zoned for residential and commercial are eligible. So we're not going to allow sidewalk repair along industrial zones. Properties must obtain 3 competitive bids from qualified contractors for sidewalk repairs. And we want to see those bids as part of the application submission. Work must be completed within 90 days of the application approval. So once we approve the application, we want the work to happen fairly quickly. However, if for some reason the deadline can't be met, we may allow a one-time extension as determined by the city. But we want to make sure we're contacted 14 days before the end of their original deadline in order to get that extension. And we're not putting a limit on how long that extension's for. That'll be determined on a case-by-case basis. Because again, someone might need a week extension, someone might need a few months, depending on circumstances. Maybe the contractor became unavailable for some reason, but they still want to use that particular contractor. Any questions on the eligibility?
Yeah, one. Oh, I'm sorry. No, for you
No,
first.
but I will have a question for number 1 for use of funds.
Yeah, on eligibility, the last sentence, the 14 days. I'm wondering whether we really need to do that, because I'm envisioning scenarios like the following, for instance. The work is proceeding on schedule. It's expected to be done on schedule. 5 days before the deadline, the contractor's equipment breaks down. Now it's less than 14 days, but now he's not going to get it done in time.
Yeah, I'm fine putting a 14 date in there. We're gonna be flexible with people, right? And if some unforeseen circumstance happened, but I like having the 14 days in there. Let's say we approve someone for a grant and they just are lazy about it. And
Oh, yeah, I
that's
see. I
doing the
can see
work,
what
right?
it's intended to do.
So I think
Yeah.
it's good to have it in there, but we're going to use discretion on, we're not going to tell someone we're not going to give you an extension because you didn't do it within 14 days when some unforeseen thing happened, 5 days before the project was supposed to be due. So
I
as long-
understand.
if they're making
the
good faith
reason for
effort
it.
towards it,
Yep.
we're going to work with them.
I understand the reason for it. It's just unintended consequences.
No,
Yeah,
for sure.
okay.
We'll work with people to avoid that. Yep.
Are we eliminating a certain population out there when we say it doesn't apply for industrial zones? There are a lot of residences in the industrial zones and they're typically older, ran down, they might be needing repair.
There are a few areas in town that are zone industrial that have residential units. Holman is an area, South House Street, just to the west of Holman, north of
Is there a way to be flexible with that? If someone came to us and said, we'd like to apply for some help, is there a way to word that where we could?
so you can get, if you want to allow industrial properties to apply for the sidewalk repair program, you can do that. Or you could also say applications for public sidewalks along properties, zone residential and commercial, or are used for residential purposes. That way you're able to say, hey, even though you're not, you're in an industrial zone, if you're a single family house or, an apartment building in that industrial zone, we allow you to participate in this program as well.
I'd rather not waste our money on helping Forest River repair their sidewalks, but there's a house, next door to them.
So I think adding the term or used for residential purposes is the way to get around that.
Where is that language? I'm
does help.
having trouble finding it. The
That's
language
under
says we're not going to do
number
it.
4.
Well, that doesn't. Oh, I see. Okay, because it says these two are eligible and doesn't mention industrial. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of allowing any residential property, if it truly is residential, regardless of where it happens to be, if a bad sidewalk in front of a house is a bad sidewalk in front of a house.
Add after commercial, put comma or used for residential purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that'll fix that.
This goes to full council anyway, right?
It does, yeah. So this is, you're just reviewing this now to be able to make the changes. All right. Anything else on eligibility? Sound good there? All right, so what are use of funds? And note Councilor Fitzgerald's question on that, but let's read it first. So number one, funds may only be used for the repair or replacement of existing sidewalks that have been damaged by the roots of street trees, general wear, or aged concrete as approved by the Public Works and Planning Departments through the applicable process. I want to strike because I didn't catch that. I don't want this to necessarily be reviewed by the Planning Department, just Public Works. So we'll strike out Planning Department. All right, Councilor Fitzgerald, what's your question?
So are these examples, but not limited to? Because when you were explaining, you kind of mentioned like if you drive over something with a heavy truck and you need to replace it, is that like your fault and you broke it, you pay for it, or?
No, I think that would fall under general wear, right? I
Okay.
mean, as approved by the Public Works Department, if they go out and they see, hey, here's this damaged sidewalk and, you know, here's how it happened. If they feel that that's, you know, an appropriate use of the funds, then they would make that decision.
General wear can cover just about anything that happens. Yeah,
Okay, so it just kind of is,
so it's a very broad term.
okay.
But it'd be at the Public Works Department if they are backing heavy loaded trucks over a residential sidewalk, they would not cover that, would they? I mean, that'd be up to discretion.
It's at the discretion of the Public Works Department, right? So
Those sidewalks are not meant to be driven on.
correct. So, you know, I can think of an example in another city where a fire truck drove over a sidewalk just off an approach and broke the sidewalk, right? And the code enforcement complaint came in, and the property owner was like, I did not do that. That was done on this day, this time, you know, it was years ago, but they knew exactly when it happened because they knew at some point someone was going to complain about it. And I went to the fire department and I said, which was a fire district at the time, and I said, hey, this sidewalk was broken. It was broken by you guys many years ago. You need to fix this, not the property owner. And they agreed, and that happened, right? So in the event that, you know, there was something like that, I think the Public Works Department would say, you know, if they noticed that, hey, this looks like it was broken by a contractor that drove a dump truck over the sidewalk, that they would reach
Sometimes
over the.
people put blocks by the curb.
Mm-hmm. Right. And again, that would be something that they shouldn't be doing because the sidewalk is not built to be able to carry those vehicles over that portion of sidewalk, right? You build a driveway and the driveway approaches are built and designed differently, different, you know, more concrete to be able to carry that load. And rebars in it. Sidewalks aren't built that way. So a sidewalk is more likely to break if you're
So
driving
then
over
that
it.
could be a denial.
That could be something where we say, no, but we're not going to fund this because you shouldn't have been doing that
Okay.
behavior. All right, so we'll strike and planning department, we'll just include the Public Works Department on number one. All right, number two, property owners are responsible for obtaining a right-of-way permit and comply with the conditions set forth in the permit for projects that require sidewalk repair. Number three, property owners must hire a licensed, bonded, and qualified contractor for sidewalk repairs. Contractor must be one of the 3 bids submitted at the time of application. So we don't want them submitting 3 bids and then using some other contractor.
Is there a cost on the right of way permit?
Jennifer, what's the cost of a right-of-way permit today? I think there is. And I don't think it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But I would say that we require that right-of-way permit under our current program. So that's not a change from what we're doing today.
Just curious how much it was.
Yeah, Jennifer can probably go run and look at that while we're talking. All right, next, the maximum reimbursement will be 50% of the lowest bid or 50% of the final invoice, whichever is less. Maximum funds that will be reimbursed through this program is 50% of the project cost up to $2,500 per application. All program awards will be made on a first come, first served basis, subject to the availability of funds in the approved program budget. Once the budgeted funds have been expended, no further applications will be approved in that funding cycle. And the funding cycle is based on our fiscal year. The lack of sufficient funds to cover the number of applications received by the city in any given fiscal year will not excuse the property owner from the responsibility of maintaining the sidewalks adjoining their property in a safe condition, nor create any liability for the city for any unsafe sidewalks. So again, if all the funds have been expended, our expectation is that the property owner resolve that themselves, or goes through the code process where the city can resolve it and invoice the property owner for that work.
Questions about that section? because I have one if nobody else does. And Justin, would you look at this for me? Top of the page, numbers 4 and 5, I see what might be a loophole. Because 4 says the maximum will be 50% of the lowest bid, but 5 says it'll be 50% of the project cost. And those aren't necessarily going to be one and the same, the way this is put together. So how do we resolve that potential ambiguity?
I think just as a drafting thing, you could probably combine those. The maximum will be the least of 50% of the lowest bid, 50% of the final invoice, or $2,500.
Whichever's less.
That's the intent.
Mhm.
Is they're all different potential caps.
That makes sense. Is everybody good with that? Let's change that as he said then.
So I'm going to strike number 5 and just number 4 will read the maximum reimbursement will be 50% of the lowest bid or 50% of the, we'll do lowest bid, comma, 50% of the final invoice, comma, or $2,500, whichever is less. All right. Thank you for that. Anything else on this section? All right. The final section is just the application process. So number 1, prior to starting any sidewalk repair work, property owner submits an application along with 3 competitive bids for sidewalk repair. Number 2, the city confirms application eligibility. If application is eligible, it will then be reviewed and a decision issued. Reminder that a completed right-of-way permit and 3 written contractor bids must accompany the sidewalk repair program application. Upon verification of the damage to the sidewalk and the application is deemed complete, city staff will review and approve the application subject to fund availability. The applicant will be notified once the application is approved and work may proceed. The work must then be completed within 90 days of the award date. If the work is unable to be completed within 90 days due to unforeseen circumstances, the applicant may request a one-time extension as determined by the city. Applicants must contact the city at least 14 days prior to the deadline should additional time be needed. Number 3, work completion. Property owner pays contractor and submits reimbursement request with final invoice. After the work is completed, the property owner must submit the actual itemized invoice from the contractor along with a signed and completed sidewalk repair program reimbursement request form. Upon verification that the work is completed, as inspected by the city's Public Works Department, and that it meets city and ADA standards, reimbursement will be made in the amount of 50% of the final invoice or 50% of the lowest bid submitted with the application in a maximum amount not to exceed $2,500.
We got questions about that part? Well, then I once again do. I apologize for
Great. This is what this is for.
I apologize for acting like a lawyer again, but I see another wording the thing that we probably want to make consistent. Under application process number 2, it says within 90 days of the award date. Back under eligibility number 6, it says 90 days of application approval. Let's just make those the same. I don't care which one we pick, but let's make them the same.
The application approval.
Okay.
On the right of way permit, so repairs to your sidewalk would be a construction right of way permit. And varies on the total amount of the total project, which you're looking about $58 for the.
Well, if there's nothing else, we have a recommended motion.
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
In terms of this. So do we market this information? Do we post it somewhere where people would know that this is available? And it's
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we do have the forms available here at City Hall. We haven't done like a lot of, hey, this program's available. I think it's, we might have a web page dedicated to it on our website. But I certainly think it's something that can be done, and we can market that in a better way than we have in the past. And I think we should.
So they have to pull a permit for this, any repairs of sidewalk, right?
Yes.
Would that be some, say, hey, by the way, we've got this?
Yeah, I think that that's certainly something that could be done. Yeah. Yeah, and that's how it works now, right? With our current program, the $500 that we have. If someone's like, "Hey, I don't have the ability to pay for this," we'll say, "Well, we have an ability to reimburse you up to $500, for the repair." And they're like, "Oh, okay, well that helps a little bit." In some cases, it doesn't help them enough, right? They need more help than that. So, again, through the code enforcement officer contacting the property owners upon complaints, that's an opportunity for letting them know about this program. We can certainly make it available through our webpage. I believe we have a webpage dedicated to this. If we don't, we can create that, right? So it's a general knowledge for the public that's on our website.
Actually have Asper's Street that maybe someone could communicate this to.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, an issue you always have with any grant program is making sure that the people who are eligible for it know that it exists. So, yeah.
And also kind of be careful that, there's some people who, have the means to do the work themselves. But they also like taking advantage of opportunities and they're eligible for that and they should. But, with a
They
program
can't
like
apply if
this,
they don't know about it.
right. With a program like this, you also want to try to help those that really need the help, not those that don't necessarily might need the help. So there's a balance there of how broadly it gets advertised to who. So
I guess if they're in to pull a permit to do the work, I guess that wouldn't be a good time to say, hey,
yeah. Oh, hey,
since they're going to do it anyway, we're trying to do more around town and help
Unless
people.
they ask. Oh, is
Yeah,
there
they
any
have-
help?
ask.
Yeah.
If anyone asks about the program, we're certainly not going to hide it from
Right.
people. All right.
Any-
So there's a recommended motion on page 4. And I'll just note that you probably want to say as amended.
For the amended draft sidewalk, as amended draft sidewalk repair program policy of the city council for approval with a due pass recommendation.
Seconded. Is there any other discussion on this? Then everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next.
Chair Shane. So the next topic is the community awards kind of honor coin discussion topic. This was referred from the council to this committee. So the discussion, if you recall from the council meeting, was, we have a lot of outstanding citizens who go above and beyond in, volunteering or just doing something great, for the community. And it would be nice to kind of recognize them. And that can be done in a variety of ways. It could be done through, bringing them into a council meeting and just saying how great they are in front of, people in a meeting and giving them a round of applause and a certificate. Or it could be, having the city councilors each carry, honor coins or challenge coins that they just pass out to individuals when they see someone doing something great. We could have something more formalized like community awards night, where we maybe have different, awards that we've, created and bring, people in and their families to recognize them in an event. The Chamber of Commerce does an event like that. The Downtown Association does something like that. So if we were to go that route, we probably want to just be careful not to step on toes or duplicate efforts. But really, this is just a conversation to say, what is it that you want us to do? We did some brief research just to see what some other cities have done. Oregon City has a volunteer recognition program. They hold that awards night. They accept nominations from the community for kind of the next generation volunteer, someone that's under the age of 18, an outstanding community member, and then also a volunteer organization of the year and a distinguished volunteer of the year, and also an outstanding committee member. There is the city of Ashland. They also annually honor 2 individuals for significant contributions to the community with awards named after community members. So if you wanted to create an award, maybe named after a community member, you could do that. I think there's, definitely some of our, long-term volunteer families in our community that could have an award named after them, that you could honor other long-term community volunteers or significant volunteer efforts from community members with those awards. The City of Canby Council accepts nominations and recognizes volunteers throughout the year for significant contributions. And then we talked about the challenge coins. We did look into kind of the creation of those coins. A couple different vendors. The cost is about $10 per coin when you order 100 or more coins. So not super expensive. One of the vendors did have kind of a setup fee of $240 in order to kind of get the template design made, and then it's the $10 per coin after that. So I'll kind of end the conversation, my report there, and turn it back to the committee for comments, questions, direction.
Immediate reaction is, A, it's a good idea, and B, it's something the whole council ought to be involved in. This would be, I think, an ideal topic for a work session.
Yeah. So the topic got brought to this committee. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, Councilor Shane, Chair Shane, and I think that before it goes back to the council in a work session to kind of have them finalize what the program looks like or whatever you create, I think this committee has an opportunity to, draft some ideas, right, and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. Kick it up to the council in a work session and say, what do you think about this?
Well, assuming that that we decide we want to go forward, it seems to me there's two things to decide. One is how many awards and what are they? And what's the tangible thing we give out? Those seem to be the two issues. Yeah, up wide open, go.
I mean, to our audience,
It's the
Sure.
chair's decision.
Work
So-
for me.
I would like to hear from Carlos.
We do have
Just-
two other counselors here, so yeah.
Just
Looking for historical,
Yeah, you can come up to the microphone,
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yeah, because
Great.
we're recording everything.
your name and
Well-
address, please.
actually, I wouldn't mind hearing from both if they're both here for that reason.
All right. Carlos Barrientos, City Councilor, Dallas, Oregon. I'm in favor of a challenge coin because a challenge coin, unlike a certificate is something that we could look back in the past and say, hey, look, maybe we could write on a certificate on this one day where everyone gets together for public recognition that on this day, on June 1st, this thing happened. The overwhelming thing with a challenge coin is that each one of us can be in possession of maybe 10 to 15 challenge coins. And when you see something, it's an on-the-spot acknowledgement. You don't have to wait till a community event night where everybody gets together. Although it is a public event and it is a public recognition, which is nice for everyone to see. But sometimes we see things at the spur of the moment, and these challenge coins are meant as, hey, wow, I just caught that. I just saw what you did. That was just amazing. And from me to you, I want you to know that I appreciate that. That's the biggest thing on a challenge coin. And it is something that you see in military arenas, in public safety arenas. And let's say a general would be out with his soldiers, and a general might see a private doing something that's above and beyond his pay grade. That's an immediate recognition. And that's why I would in favor the challenge coin. And it's something that it's honored and somebody can put up and it's tangible, they could look at, and they'll remember it all of their days. That particular instance where they had that meeting with a citizen and a government official that recognized them.
Like that idea, but I would like to see it maybe go one step further, whereas if we gave a coin to someone on the spot, we also bring them to the next council, and then that counselor would say, hey, this person's name, this person did this, I observed this, and recognize them as a group. They were a recipient of a challenge coin that I observed and gave to.
I agree
I-
wholeheartedly with that. I was going
Yeah.
to suggest something similar.
That definitely would close the loop. The loop is kind of half closing because it is kind of a private type thing, but in this way, you would have a private and a public acknowledgement.
I like the idea of, and I just thought of this while you were talking. One thing I like about the idea of a challenge coin is that there's no red tape or administrivia to go through. You're on the spot, you do it. You don't have to fill out a form. You don't have to wait for a committee to look at. None of it. All gone. It's right there, instantaneous, no red tape. I like that aspect of it a lot.
I think what we need to figure out is the criteria, right? Maybe, but we could all be subjective. we may all be subjective and triggered in different ways on what generates someone receiving a challenge coin. Maybe a few criterias, 5 criterias, probably at the most. I don't think you need more than 5. Maybe you don't need more than 3, you know?
Keep them general.
Yeah, I think, with the challenge coin concept, I don't even know if I would have criteria. I would just leave it up to the discretion of the counselor to say, hey, and some counselors are going to be more willing to give out challenge coins than others for different reasons. I like talk about closing the loop, and then I'll get to your comment, Counselor Shane, because I know you have one.
The
I
only
think that
thing
you
Joseph
could-
said it for me.
Counselor Schilling.
or Counselor Schilling, not Shane. Sorry, I'm looking at Schilling and saying Shane. Is with the challenge coin, you could, for the kind of closing the loop, when you're passing out that challenge coin to the individual, you could say, hey, I'd love to have you attend our next council meeting, right? And make that invitation right there. So that way, because some people don't want public recognition, right?
Now, some
And
people
so,
say no.
right. So you're giving them the opportunity. You're just making the invitation. Hey, we'd love to have you come out. Here's the next council meeting. It's at this time. And with your permission, I'd love to have you there. We could recognize you there. But if you're not comfortable with that, ask them, are you comfortable with me just expressing the experience that I had? And I can use your name or not. You can have that conversation with them there. You're building that relationship with the individual that you're recognizing on the spot, but then giving them the opportunity to come if they want that recognition. If they don't, you can still ask if they'd be willing to allow you to share that experience. And then you can do that during the council comment portion. So even having that be less formal, but just an invitation, I think is probably the way to close that loop.
A lot of them are personal. It's like, I know that if I was handed a coin for the watering, did you use the watering the trees?
Yes.
Trees. I've been down on the path, and a guy after the ice storm was piling limbs, and I asked, why are you doing this? And he goes, it gets me in shape, and it's something that needs to be done. And it's like, I understood. A lot of them are parks. There's a lot of those around town. He would not have wanted to come in. I mean, I talked to him. I go, city council really appreciates your work, but your synopsis of the procedure, and I'd kind of like that in a procedure a little bit, so we have a little direction.
Yeah, I think we can write down, kind of what the purpose and intent of the challenge coin is, and your opportunity as a counselor to invite them, to have the conversation and invite them to come to a meeting if they would like. If they don't want, you can ask them if they'd be willing to, have their story shared in their name. Again, kind of giving the guidance to the counselors to have that conversation and to be able to close that loop if the person so chooses. I'll also add that it's not either or, right? We can have these challenge coins. We can also, have a recognition night sort of thing. So I want to not lose sight of that. The last part of the challenge coin conversation that I had, a thought that came on my mind was, I would want to put parameters on how many challenge coins we give to each counselor each year. Because again, if one counselor is like, these are the greatest things ever, and I give them to everyone, I need 500 more challenge coins. We're not going to do that, right? So I think setting a limit of the number of challenge coins that we give to a counselor each year, whether it's 10, 15, 20, whatever number you come up with, we want to make sure that that's kind of set in the procedure policy of this as well.
I like that idea, and also recognize that the very first recipient, the one in these challenge coins, in my opinion, should be numbered 1 through however many. That very first one, to me, I feel like it has to be a really special. I mean, it's not anybody going to the moon or whatever, but that one is going to be a very valuable coin.
So would you want it numbered like 1 through, let's say 10, right? 1 through 10 for each counselor giving out their coins. So like you have number 1 through 10, Larry has number 1 through 10, David, Kim, you all have number 1 through 10. And then as a new counselor comes on the council after another election, they start over with their number 1, through whatever. Is that kind of the concept?
My concept is the very first one, and then each one after them.
The problem with that is if
But
we're
each-
talking to each other all the time,
Yeah.
you might have given one out, and I don't think anybody has, but you did it yesterday and I didn't hear about it. And now I think I'm doing the first one.
Right. So
We're all open up.
I mean,
to
you know what I'm saying?
different-
It's like you have 10 elected officials, everyone's going to have 10 coins.
Yeah.
I like the idea of saying, hey, this is the first one I'm giving out, right? I love that concept. but you also have 9 other people besides you that are also giving out challenge coins. So I think you would want to have, if you want to have I'm giving you my first one.
Right.
Then I think we can do it by counselor, starting with the numbering.
I think that's a good idea.
Another plus to the challenge coin idea is since we've agreed that not everybody's going to want to come and be recognized publicly, for those that don't, they've got a tangible thing, that they've got, even though they weren't announced in front of a public forum, they've still got evidence that, they were singled out.
And really, this isn't just standalone. We could start it at city council, but really the police department could do that within their own agency. The fire department could do that within their own agency. Public Works or each division, it's just limited to your imagination.
I would say the police department and the fire department have challenge coins today. So we already have those for those 2 departments. Yeah.
Responders, I think, can already do that.
Yeah, it's pretty standard for those agencies. So
But the second half of the conversation would be on maybe an annual recognition in a I'd hate to use the word certificate, but people that, come to mind, my mind would be like Ann Hurd or somebody who
sure.
would want to publicly recognize on an annual basis for something other than a challenge coin. Is that what we're?
Yeah. So I think that, the 3 categories that come to my mind, looking at what the other cities have kind of done, right, is, a youth volunteer, someone under the age of 18 who's given to the community, I think is important, right? Just building that civic engagement at the young level. We have our youth advisory council that's going on. Maybe it's someone from there. The library has their own youth board, like a youth library board. So I think you have some areas to draw from, or maybe it's someone that's not involved in one of those, kind of city run things, but someone else that just is involved maybe with, another service organization or something in the community. So it could be like that. I think you would have someone who serves on one of your boards and commissions. I think having someone recognized from your own boards and commissions is an award that I would consider. And then maybe like, an outstanding volunteer award, someone who's over the age of 18 who also gives a lot to the community, an Ann Hurd type or a Mike Bowman.
Gatorade, people like that.
Gatorade, individuals like that have just given years of their life to bettering Dallas. And I would not have a special night for that. I would probably wrap that into a council meeting. So that way you're just inviting those 3 individuals and their families, in the process for, nominations and reviewing that and scoring that can all be hashed out. But I would probably keep it small enough to where you're not giving out tons of awards. You're able to do it just during a council meeting, something like that.
5.
Yeah, 3 to 5, something like that.
For the record, Michael Holsapple, City Councilor. I agree 100% with what's been discussed here. I do think it's very important to have something that can be shown recognition on the spot. One of the issues when I worked at the sheriff's office, we had challenge coins, but to get a challenge coin, somebody had to nominate you for it, and it had to be approved by the administration. It just became a red tape thing, and then it became a point where it was like, we're not giving anybody these challenge coins. We've got challenge coins, and nobody's getting them because you have to go through an approval process, and it defeated the whole purpose of the program. So yes, there should be coins that are handed out, and you should have discretion as a counselor to, you have a maximum number of coins you have for the year, whether it be 5 or 10 or whatever it is. And that once those are gone, you're done until the next year's order comes out or whatever. And so it's your discretion as to, if you're going to let them all go in January or if you're going to work them out through the months of the year. I do agree with having a actual recognition though, as well, and adding a challenge coin as part of that, whether it be, this is your recognition and this is your challenge coin to go with the recognition, making it a part of that. So I'm having it part of the overall recognition program, whether it be individually from a counselor or from the entire council to nominate a recipient. So.
This reminds me at the school where I work, well, at all the schools, as a matter of fact, they have these little cards that if you catch a student going above and beyond, you give them one of the cards and they write their name on it and they put it in a bucket. And at the end of the week, somebody pulls a name out and they get a little prize. And so it's just kind of the same concept all the way down to the elementary level. Mm-hmm.
From
But we have at
elementary
our
to-
school, we have an acronym HOWL, and it's, you know, having respect and owning responsibility and working together and being safe and so all those things. And if they're doing those things, they get a,
Well, it seems like everybody in the room thinks it's a good idea, so we just have to hammer out the specifics.
Yeah, so I think, drawing this conversation to your goals, right? One of your goals is to celebrate more, right? And I think this is one way that you do that, right? Through the challenge coins and through the recognition night. So just to move the conversation along, I think what we can do is we can come back at your next admin committee meeting with some kind of sideboards around what challenge coins will be in terms of the number that you get per year, kind of the process for circling back and closing the conversation loop, inviting them to a council meeting. We can also come back with what a recognition night would look like, maybe the 3 to 5 different awards, some ideas of maybe, what those are called and what they, are going to look for in terms of the types of people that we want to fit into those categories. Maybe there's some rules around that we can create. So any more guidance on those, either of those topics? Or what?
There are 10 positions.
10 counselors?
Well,
or
there's
elected
9
officials?
counselors, 1 mayor.
Right. Yes.
So 100 does work pretty well.
Right. Yeah. So, 100 coins, I think 10 is probably the number that I would start with in the rules I come back with.
Can go around and ask other counselors for some of their coins.
Their coins.
He can hand that more.
We can sell them to them.
As long as it's not the number 1 coin, not the number 1.
You don't get my number 1.
What my bid?
You can give me your number 10, 9, 8, work backwards. All right. No, that sounds good. That's all on that topic. We'll bring back some additional information at a future meeting.
Hey, before we adjourn, just one other little thing.
Yep.
I've noticed that Tim is now starting to park his cars on the public streets again. When can we revisit the changes to the development code to make sure that we don't get any more of those in the future? Because this has come up before.
Any more like auto mechanic shops in the central business district? We are working on putting together a package of code updates through the planning department. That would be the appropriate time to make sure that that's addressed then.
Sure that
Yeah.
gets in the mix.
Yeah. I'll do
Because
that.
as you know, that is one of my hot buttons. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Larry?
I wanted to bring up in the last couple of weeks, I've had 2 different people come up to me and want to talk about an issue they have, which I don't even know if the city has authority over, which is where I wanted to tee this up on. They both had tenants in rental units here in Dallas that have not paid their rent. They've gone to court several different times. One's up to 6 months now. And the courts keep awarding the tenant more time. And I recall a year or so ago, we had the squatters, which is a slightly different situation over here on Academy, and it took almost an act of God to get them out of there. So I'm wondering do we have any authority, or should we even discuss any kind of policies or rules in the city to reduce or limit
You
that?
say they went to court. Was it our municipal court or the one across the street?
I don't think it was city court. I think it
City
was
court.
across the street.
I assume you're talking about residential landlord tenant issues.
They are residential
Yeah,
landlords,
Yeah,
individuals.
I mean, I don't know what you could do at the city level. There's a state statute that kind of governs residential landlord tenancies, and really sets pretty comprehensively what can or can't be done.
How did the academy situation ended up in city court? How did that happen?
It didn't end up in city court. It was so the code violations associated with the tenants living
City
there
court.
were city court.
Okay.
The eviction was through the county court.
Yeah, so I mean, the closest you could get would be if there's a tenant who is committing a bunch of code violations, because that's usually also a breach of a typical rental agreement. And you can enforce your code if a tenant has has a bunch of cars in their lawn that they're working on, or they're clearly running a unlawful business out of the residence. You can do the code enforcement. There's really nothing I can think of that you could do at the city level that would affect the course of an eviction or not. That goes through the circuit court. Usually there's kind of a sub department in the circuit court that handles those, and it's a matter of state statute. And I can't think of anything at the city level that could be done that would really impact that.
Squeaky clean but not paying their rent, there's nothing they can do about it.
I mean, you'd ask the legislature to change the statute is what you do.
Yeah, besides giving free legal advice, which we don't want to be in. So I don't think we want to do that. I was going to start saying we could give advice as far as on our website, and that's just like, that gets a slippery slope. Yeah, it's an issue for landlord rights. There aren't any. So.
Blight and all kinds of issues around our town that, we're trying our best to keep things.
Blight issue we can handle a little bit through code enforcement.
Right. And the blight is what gets addressed through code enforcement.
Okay. All right.
Of which we have a pretty active program. And we have people that when they see that blight, they're Johnny on the spot of reporting it.
That it? Anything else? Then we are adjourned at 4:52.
Do I call the Buildings and Grounds Committee to order, and we will use the roll call that's from the past meeting of Public Administration. And at this time, are there any things in the minutes that need changed? Discussion on minutes? Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those,
You did that motion.
Barry Briggs.
Thank you.
sorry. All those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, passed unanimous. Second is the EV charger update. Brian, can you?
So again, this is we're still gathering data, albeit slowly. I haven't done anything since the last meeting in terms of gathering more for looking at maybe a replacement program for what we have currently. But I do want to just give you again the last 2 months worth of data for charging, both the minutes and revenue that we've received from the charging, as well as the costs associated with that, and then kind of the profit loss. So in July, total charging was 9,000, just under 10,000 minutes, less the 565 minutes of a city vehicle. And the total revenue was $658.83. The electric bill for the charging stations in July was $483.70 for a July profit of $175.13. In August, you saw the total number of minutes dramatically drop from just under 10,000 to a little less than 3,300 total minutes. The city vehicle was not charged in August. The employee that was using that no longer works here, and that vehicle was used pretty minimally during the month of August. So the total revenue for the 34 minutes was $258.38. The electricity for August was $327.69 for a profit loss of the month of a loss of $69.31. Looking at the month we're in right now, September, we're trending more with the total charging minutes of August versus July. So we may expect to see similar numbers for August, similar numbers for September that we're seeing in August, but we'll know that kind of at the end of the month. I'm guessing you're starting to see maybe the effects of the price increase going from 4 cents to 8 cents per minute on the slow chargers. But again, that'll bear out more over time. Some people feel the initial shock of, oh my gosh, a big rate increase. and then that wanes over time, and you might start seeing those minutes tick back up. So we'll track this over the next few months to see kind of what happens. But this is where we're at. So in the fiscal year, given that we had a larger profit in July than our loss in August, we're still at $105 of profit for the fiscal year.
Given that in July, there were almost 10,000 units and only about roughly a 20th of that was accounted for by city vehicles, to what do you attribute that dramatic drop between the 2 months?
So it could be a variety of things, right?
Because we're talking like almost a 70%.
Yeah,
drop.
you're seeing over, a 2/3 drop. So it could be one, the price going from 4 cents to 8 cents per minute could be a factor. I'm sure that's probably a contributing factor. It could be, maybe one of a regular user was on vacation or maybe moved out of town, right? Someone who, maybe worked for, a downtown business that used to park their car there and charge it, 7 hours a day is no longer doing that. So it could be a variety of things. We just don't know. Again, I think having 1 month's drop isn't good enough if to realize that if that's a trend, if that was we just don't know.
I just wondered,
data.
you expect to see fluctuations.
Yes.
Everything fluctuates, but that given the size of the delta, I just wondered if you had any real
If
handle.
I were to guess, I would guess it was the price increase.
So am I right in assuming that we're still operating on a loss every month?
So only in August and July we had a profit.
Why was there a profit and in 1 month?
Because in July, there was almost 10,000 minutes of charging that took place, less the 565 from the city vehicle, which doesn't get billed. So we received more revenue with the more minutes of charging. In August, we only had 3,200 minutes of charging, right? So
Right.
only a third. So we received a lot less revenue, right? So we went from $650 in revenue to $258 in revenue. And of course, your electricity is not as expensive because you're not charging as much. But just
But
to
it's
keep
almost, I mean, it's only $100 less.
right, because you still have to keep the chargers on
Oh,
and electricity running to them. So there's going to be a base electricity
A
charge,
service fee
right?
Involved, a base fee probably anyway, right?
Right. So there's kind of base charges for your electrical use for the chargers, whether or not anyone's actually charging. So
Just glad we're tracking
there's
it. We're seeing.
use.
yes, there's still electricity needed to have those units ready to, perform.
That makes
Um,
sense.
It's just seeing the dramatic decrease in how much they were actually being used resulted in less revenue and, and it was less electricity, right? I mean, it was $150 roughly.
Well, yeah,
less
but it
in
wasn't that
electricity.
much less money, so I
Right.
guess that
But
was
it didn't
really my
equate to
question.
the loss in revenue because you still have
You still have to
electricity.
be the ready, whether you're doing
Right.
10,000 minutes or you're doing
Right.
3,000. Okay.
Besides the one I'm going to say.
I'm just glad we're still in the black. I hope it stays that way.
Well, I will counteract that. We are not in the black. We have machines that are broken at this point in time, and they cost way more to replace those machines than what our profit is for the year. Because right now, if you take the 2-month average, you're looking at what, $630, and what is the replacement of our lowest level?
The small chargers.
Yeah.
I think they're less than that. That's the information we're still gathering. So
So on a true profit and loss, you have to have maintenance in there, and we are not in the black.
Well, I was just looking strictly at the cash flow.
we're this is just the two factors we're looking at.
Yep.
You're exactly right, Chair Shane. Chair Schilling. I'm gonna not stop.
I know
calling
my
you
name,
Chair
it's
Shane.
fine.
I should know your name. But you're missing certain things in there, right? Replacement costs of the charger, your software costs, your annual software costs. Those are not accounted for in here. Again, we're providing you just this baseline information so you have it, so you can see kind of what the charges are. But the larger conversation on whether or not we continue to have these facilities long term will be borne out through the research that we're still gathering information on. We'll have that conversation sometime this later in the fall, early winter.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't think the city should be paying
to charge people's
I
cars.
think that's been clear from the council is we don't want to subsidize this program.
Excellent.
Yeah, well,
That's why we
from
started,
the
that's
county,
why we started tracking this.
Right.
I mean, obviously from an accrual standpoint, you have to factor all those things in, but I was just talking about the actual cash flow in and out.
Go on to the next item on the agenda, ADA play equipment. I don't know if is that Jennifer, or is that you?
That's Jennifer. We're going to invite our public works director to come
we
up
can hear
and talk about
Jennifer.
this. And she probably knows your name better than I do.
Thank you, Chair Schilling. So about a year ago, well, let me put it this way. Over the course of my time managing the parks, it has been brought to my attention that we need more play opportunities, play equipment opportunities for children with a variety of disabilities or that are challenged in different ways. And we are responding to that through the construction of Barnard Park, which will have a whole play structure that the play structure itself is accessible and the getting to it is also accessible because of the type of play surface that we're putting down. However, that is only in one park in one part of the city. And this particular design doesn't include a swing structure. It has other play functions, but not a swing. And so there have even with Barnard Park coming online, there have continued to be requests for more ADA options for our children. And there was one couple in particular that came to the Parks Board, made the request. They have a grandchild that they're asking for, and they're particularly interested in having a swing, particularly interested in having it at City Park, which I agree is a good place for that. So we started over the course of the year just looking at options. A swing itself isn't actually that expensive with any of these. Like the play structures themselves are fairly affordable compared to the play surface. So doing a poured in place rubber play surface or tiles, some parks are even using a soft AstroTurf now. Those all cost a lot. But we went through the process to see, what that would actually pen out to be. And as we were going through that process, I was also approached by Dallas Rotary. They were interested in just, do you have, a project that we can get in on, that we could contribute money to, that we can contribute some sweat equity to? And I listed a number of options, and, ADA, especially an ADA swing was one of them, and they really liked that. And so, as you can see from your report, we came up with a project cost of just shy of $40,000. So $5,500 to purchase a 2-bay swing, swings the structure with the swings, that the parks crew will install. So that's just the purchase for the equipment. We'll do the installation. As you can see, the play surface, so a rubberized poured in place surface, which is similar to what we're putting out at John Barnard, comes in a little over $25,000. We would need to do some site prep, including pouring the concrete for that, which we will probably contract out. So we have about $9,000-$10,000 for that. Dallas Rotary has committed $5,000. When the Dallas Community Foundation found out about this, they were interested and committed $5,000 as well. And the rest we are able to cover through Parks SDCs. We've had some other projects that we had planned on using Parks SDCs for this year that we're not using this year. So we can pull $30,000 out of that pretty safely. However, this is a total project cost of over $10,000, which would count as a capital improvement project. It's not captured as part of our capital planning in our planning for this fiscal year because it wasn't a project that we're correct. So I'm bringing it to you. I'm hoping that you would then recommend to the City Council to approve this for being added to our capital improvement project for this fiscal year.
I'm going to just put the motion out there and then we can have all the discussion we want.
Go ahead.
Move to recommend the city council add the ADA accessible swing set project to the city's capital improvement plan with project completion in fiscal year 2025-26.
Second to the motion.
Second that. I have a question.
Hearing there's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion, Larry?
Is it a question?
I mean, Counselor.
This is at the city park,
Correct.
not.
Dallas, the big park.
Yes, the big part.
Which side?
So it would be on the academy side. We have 2 play areas there. We, in council with the Parks Advisory Board, we would like to place this close to, not sure about, I guess it would be like the south side where the larger play structure already is. Mhm.
Should also help with concrete.
Correct. And that's part of it as well.
Counselor Shane?
Obvious next question. Are we thinking about doing something similar at Barnard Park since it already is at the moment sort of our showcase for ADA stuff? And it won't have this, will it? If we don't do something in addition to what we're proposing here?
It won't have a swing, an accessible swing, but it will have a larger play structure that is also accessible, that is entirely accessible.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I was thinking is that if you're getting comments from people saying, hey, we ought to have an accessible swing, people who use Barnard Park are going to look at that and you're going to get the same comments from them, I would think.
We don't have any swings at Barnard Park. We opted for other play structures there. So
well, and it's not something we need to decide now. I just wondered if you were thinking about it as a longer term.
It'd be kind of hard to put it in there space wise.
a little bit. Yeah.
That park's pretty busy.
Yeah, but it's about to get a lot bigger.
You,
The south side. Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered if it was on your radar at all. That's all.
I agree. There's been some people that have come up and said, hey, let's make sure we have a ADA accessible swing seat. I brought that to your attention, and then it was reported back that we didn't have a swing to put the seat in. So I had to tell the people that there isn't a swing there. So
John Bernard.
At Barnard.
Yeah. So I just agree with Councilor Shane on
Have to do anything about it today, but I'd like it to be on the radar at least.
Thank you.
Extension. Any other comments? Seeing there's no other comments, all those in favor of the motion, then, which is to approve this moving to the capital improvements. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. It's approved unanimously. Thank you, Jennifer.
Great, thanks.
There is nothing else on the agenda, so I will adjourn this meeting at whatever time it is. 7 after 5.